we're talking a lot about digital transformation, and it's interesting to see how our industry is beginning to come to terms with digitization, delivering service the way their clients want to be serviced. The use of mobile devices, etc., are becoming part and parcel of everyday life, or they are part and parcel of everyday life. But our industry is taking a while, I think, to sort of catch up. And a lot of that is to do with the underlying technology and also mindsets. So today I thought it would be a great idea to have a conversation with Helen Clark. Helen runs her own consultancy, Mint Blue Consulting, and specialises in helping firms implement change, implement technology so that they can run their businesses more effectively to, over time, hopefully build a more future-proof business. So I'm delighted to welcome Helen. Helen.
Good to see you, Roland.
Nice to see you too. So I always start like this. It's really good for our viewers to sort of get a sense of who you are, where you've come from. So tell us about Helen Clark, your journey to setting up your own business, and then what your business does.
So yes, I've been in the industry since 1987. So like many people, I started at a product provider. I was at AXA Equity and Law and corporate pension side, and then I moved into the advisor side of the industry. So I worked at a very small IFA. Effectively, we did everything. I was office manager, was advising. It was all paper-based. It was in the 1990s. So, yeah, absolutely. But then I moved on to Towery Law, as they were then, national IFA. And I had the opportunity, and they actually created an operational project management role for me on the back of a major CRM change. So it was a really exciting time. It was the turn of the century. There was lots of e-commerce initiatives starting. Yeah. So basically we started digitally transforming the business and had the opportunity to start processing certain applications online. I think bonds was the one we did. Got involved with the contract inquiry project that Origo were running at the time, and just innovative ideas that were coming through. Integration mergers were a big part of that. They went down the acquisition part at one point as well. And then I had the opportunity to work as a software project manager with Dynamic Planner, and moved on to work with FTRC on a more consultancy basis, and helping businesses develop and grow, working with the research team. And then I decided I'd move back into the advisor space. Yeah. It's an area I've always enjoyed. So there was a few more years where I worked at Mazars, who were one of the top 10 accounting firms.
Yeah, I remember. I think that's where we first met, was it? Or had we met before?
I think we'd met before through FTRC.
Yes, you're right. We had,
yes,
of course.
Yeah. So, and this is the great thing about the industry. You get to meet lots and lots of different people across. And particularly when I was working at Towery Law, it was the first time really the industry had started coming together and working across the different businesses and suppliers and bringing it all together. So at Mazars, programme manager, working very closely with the financial planning team and later on with the wider LLP. And we took them on that digital transformation journey. They were wanting to grow their business. So we really looked at their tech stack, all the processes that we're bringing through, and how we could actually get these all improved. So, and started looking at integrations and just efficiencies. And by the time we finished, they were able to grow the business and keep the operational cost at a reasonable level.
So you've mentioned my favourite phrase, digital transformation, a couple of times there. I mean, what does that actually mean so far as you're concerned? What does digital transformation mean to you, and also in the context of the financial advice business that we serve?
For me, it's all about making sure you're streamlining your processes. There are still businesses today that choose to run on spreadsheets. Yeah. And as I said, back in the 1990s, I was working with an IFA business that was purely paper. It was maybe a bit of Word in the background, but that was about it. Yeah. And you can't get efficiencies in the longer run when you're working on that way. So today, most people will have some form of technology in their business, but the more you integrate, the more you can enter the data once, the more efficient it's going to be. You remove that erroring that can occur in anybody's situation. Yeah. And it's about bringing those efficiencies in so that you can actually get an end-to-end process and make it more interesting for your employees. You get away from those mundane tasks.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you know, obviously we've got technologies that have been around for a long time, and you know, I love the idea of digital transformation. Microsoft themselves have a massive stance on digital transformation, but their mantra about digital transformation is think big, obviously, start small, but just start. So it's a journey. It's those little steps that firms need to take over a period of time to enable that transformation to occur. One of the things that, again, you've mentioned quite a lot is efficiency. We've been, the financial advice industry, was really born in the sort of 1986 with the introduction of the Financial Services Act. And of course, things have moved apace over that period. But here we are. We've got financial advice businesses servicing their clients, but typically, most people that we speak to seem to suggest that you've got one advisor looking after about 100, 150 people, clients at maximum. And that throws a real challenge down to the industry, doesn't it? Because if you think about it, we've got 30 odd million people that need financial advice of sorts, and financial advisors, professional financial advisors, looking after about 3.5 million of those. So given your understanding and experience in this space and how people operate on a day-to-day basis, what benefits do you think digital transformation will deliver to these firms, given that after 20 years of using traditional back office systems, firms are still taking, or individuals are still taking 2, 3, 4 hours to do review reports of questionable value? What's your view there? How can we make a difference? How can we change, and how will digital transformation make a difference?
It's partly education. I think firms are very good about taking on new technology and get very enthusiastic at the start. It's about keeping that enthusiasm going, because systems are now increasingly moving to the cloud. So the days of getting a disk where you have to sit and update in the background are slowly disappearing, thank goodness. But it means there's more functionality coming through. So if you have an advisor firm, for instance, that is writing all its suitability reports and writing them out in full, they might have some templates, but you can have systems where you can have those standard paragraphs actually sitting there, the key regulation parts that compliance are so keen that everybody makes sure they absolutely get right, but the ability to put the tailoring around the report as well. So one really good example, I worked with a client that they were rebalancing manually once a quarter and taking an awful lot of their admin staff to do that. It was a huge overhead. So worked with them to make it automated, because the platform had brought in the actual automation to do that, but they hadn't been taking advantage of it. So they suddenly took out a huge amount of overhead, and that meant their cost base came down enormously. And actually the people that were doing that role every quarter were freed up to do far more interesting work. So it's about corralling and collating everything you're bringing through. MI is really important as well. The more data you're putting in and leaving there to pass through all the integrated systems, the more you can get insights out. Because ultimately you want to know how your business is performing. Where are you concentrating your main activities? What kind of services are you producing for your clients? I think we've also seen the pandemic has moved on some aspects very strongly. Digital signatures, we know, has been something on the table for a long time, but it's been forced through to a large extent. Client portals also, they were being used, but they're being used far more. So it's about people gaining confidence around the technology. It's around that education to see what it can do to help.
And I think, again, you've touched on some really interesting points in that discussion. And we also have one of our largest clients, actually, they were using Advisor Office. They were managing advised portfolios. They were running the portfolios in Excel. And they had a 6-monthly rebalance, and it used to take them about 3 months to do the 6-monthly rebalance. It was madness. And so by taking their challenge, by creating an auto rebalancer within our own software, Curo, that process, they now rebalance about 4,000 or 5,000 portfolios at the click of a button. All the permissions obviously go out because they are advisory, but they go out to the client via DocuSign. The clients then sign them electronically. It all comes back, and then they immediately update. So that process has been reduced from about 3 months to about 4 or 5 days in aggregate, but in a much more robust process, because you've got no piece of paper flying all over the place. It's all contained, which I think is really key. So again, I think, recognising the challenges firms have, I suppose, and this is what I often say to clients, the thing about digital transformation or transforming your business is to perhaps start by identifying the lumpy bits in your business, the things that are stealing your time, and then focus on those priorities so that, if there's one thing I can change today that would make a material difference to my business in terms of time saving, what would that be? And then not try to take on too much, thus the start, but start small. Because if you are able to solve one problem, then you believe in the potential to say solve 2 problems and then 3, and then over that period of time, whether it be a year, 2 years, 3 years, you'll look back and all of a sudden things are fundamentally different. You'll say, how on earth did we survive in that pre-world now that we've obviously been through that journey? And it's that belief which I think is really important, isn't it? Because I think the problem with tech in our space, and sorry, I'm interviewing you, but I think the problem with our tech, and see whether you agree with this or not, is that it's sold very much as a solution, but somehow it doesn't necessarily deliver the efficiencies that our clients are looking for. So that sort of rolls nicely into my next question about current advisor technology. What's your view about current advisor technology? And we're talking obviously the main ones.
Yes.
And don't hold your horses. I mean, obviously this is an advert for Time4Advice and Curo, so...
I think it's actually in a really interesting space. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of investment with the key technology in the marketplace. So, which is great news for the advisors, because we can see systems across the board being moved, as I said before, into cloud hosting away from servers, which gives a lot more flexibility. You've got APIs that are coming in, a much stronger integration. So advisors have actually got a lot of choice. We can see that acceleration through. The pandemic has accelerated again. There's been a flurry of activity in terms of acquisitions. We've seen cash flow technology. There's a couple of companies that have been purchased in the last year alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Voyant and CashCalc, the 2 big ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So the emphasis has moved from the model perhaps it was 4 or 5 years ago to actually how can these systems be deeper integrated. It's not a perfect world, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. And
I think you're right, and we talked about it earlier. It's not about having a logo on a website, is it? We integrate with this without really having too much integration going on. It's about delivering real value. It's about delivering the efficiencies that the technology has always promised but hasn't yet delivered because of that lack of integration capability. And to be able to seamlessly transition data from one environment to the next, do the work, have everything come back, and then use that work, the data, the documents that come back as a result of that integration, to then populate automatically your template solution, leveraging the data, the value from the data and the documents, merging all into that beautifully crafted report, which on first inspection you think somebody spent 4 or 5 hours doing, in fact only took 30 seconds. And it's getting to that stage which is really important. And then you're right, beginning to then deliver value through more digital means, because the future is mobile. There's no question about that. The next generation, the generation that is going to inherit the so-called trillions of pounds of inherited wealth, aren't going to necessarily want to sit down with an IFA to talk about the money. They want it on demand.
Absolutely, and you've got some really good applications coming out that can help with that. I think one of the biggest challenges the industry has is the legacy systems. So the advisor technology is accelerating, as already said. There's a massive amount of integration, but you've got the challenge with perhaps the platforms and particularly the providers. We've had technology sitting there for 30 years.
And that is the point, isn't it? Yeah. Because, you see the new challenger banks, Starling and people like that, who are really disrupting the banking environment by delivering something immediate. I use Starling. It's, I moved from Intelligent Finance to Starling, and the difference is just incredible. I've got everything I need right there. And that sort of sets expectations. But the problem, I suppose, with the advice industry, of course, is you are trying to aggregate data from so many different disparate sources. You've got all of that legacy that somehow needs to be catered for and then aggregated and disaggregated in a way that's meaningful. And I think, you touched on a really good point, that the industry itself, the providers, haven't yet opened up their facilities to make it easier to do that. And I think you know, again, a lot of that is down to the technology in common use. There's no commercial imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the commercial challenge. And, you know, policies, by the nature of our industry, policies will be running for 25 years.
Exactly.
At least, some of them, if not longer. You know, pensions can be ongoing. And it's, as you say, not commercially viable to move some of the old policies off the systems.
Yes.
So, but the front end, the ultimate aim is the client has a smooth experience.
It has to be. And I suppose, you know, the wrap platforms were the next step in sort of trying to address the legacy. It's difficult because, of course, sometimes it's not good advice to move a 25-year endowment when you're 20 years into it. So the legacy will always be there, I guess, until it's eventually washed through. But what I'm finding quite interesting now is, of course, there's the established platform players. So you've got them, they've been around for quite a few years now. And now you're hearing about businesses that are thinking, well, actually, why do I need a wrap platform at all? I can, you know, deploy my own platform, a white label solution where I can strip out cost and, you know, use my own CRM system sitting at the front of that to manage that. What's your view on that? Because obviously, I think it's an interesting discussion and a potential challenge for you know, the more established platforms.
Yes, and it's something that's been mooted for a number of years now, that the ultimate solution is to have a platform and a CRM. And there are some companies out there that have done that. The systems are still very different, but this level of integration. So absolutely, the more, and having worked on operational projects for the best part of 20 years, you're constantly looking at getting rid of those workarounds. Yeah. You don't want to be keying in data to find you've then got to rekey it into yet another system. Yeah, exactly. So the more the CRMs and platforms can integrate, but it's got to be the right solution for the advisor. Yeah. So you, with platforms in particular, you've got to be able to justify back to the FCA your choice of platform. You're looking at segmentation around for your clients, giving them different offerings. So you need that flexibility through, to some extent, through the APIs. Unless you're locked into a particular setup, you need to have that flexibility to be able to take your clients in different directions and where their investments are being held. So
to sort of sum up then, if I were to say two things, okay? Firstly, where do you think the big challenges are? What does the industry need to really address those challenges? Because we've talked a lot about efficiency, digital transformation and all that sort of stuff, but from a practical perspective, you know, what's the next thing they should be doing in order to challenge themselves, but also to help their businesses become more sustainable, more profitable, more efficient, etc. And the other thing I was going to ask was, is there hope? Do you see a beam of light which says, yes, we have a fascinating and potentially really exciting opportunity? And I'd just be great to get that take from you, given what you've seen and your understanding of the business and what's going on in the background. So I think challenges for the advisor community is always regulation. Yeah. So there's been a lot of impacts on the industry in the last few years. GDPR was a big one, and that affected all companies across the country and wider, but also senior managers and certification regime. So the onus has moved from the company holding ultimate responsibilities to actual nominated individuals, and been running workshops, as you know, with Model Office around this very subject. So advisors are trying to focus on that middle path of servicing their clients. They want to talk to clients. Yeah. That's where their business is. So juggling regulation, and they're also juggling technology. So the best thing that an advisor firm can be doing is looking at their technology on a regular basis. They need that review of the tech stack to say, is it actually delivering out? Are we actually using all the functionality there? It's not necessarily about changing what you're using, it's about consolidating. So I've gone into clients where they've been using, say, 2 cash flow modelling tools. And you're going, why are you using 2? Well, it's inherited. People bring different systems in. And it's about getting all the assumptions and everything sitting around that in a consistent way. So coming back to my earlier point, it's very easy to pick up technology, input it, and then go, right, that's it, we'll just leave it.
but you're really going to help your business grow if you regularly review what's going on. And then it's the processes around that, because you can find actually that's saving us time in this area. Let's alter our process in line with that as well. Yeah. So in terms of light for the industry, it is around what's going to be attracting people of all ages to say, actually, I need to speak to an advisor. I want to get help with this. And I think, as you said earlier, moving to this mobile app and the ability to get to information easily and actually centrally, and it go all in one place, and comes back to the ideas of the client portals, you're actually driving the customer or client experience down a particular path. Yeah. And the pandemic has really accelerated how we work, how we interact, how we communicate. Yeah. And I think that will shape the way in which the industry is going through to highlight where there is more development as the industry as a whole and where companies want to focus to support that.
Fantastic. And I think you're right. The pandemic, although terrible, has been a real driver for change, especially in the advice world, where historically the vast majority of advisors say, no, we are face-to-face. That's our USP. Clients really love having us in the same room, but actually that has been proven to be a false assumption. And, what's happened as a result is people can get face-to-face on their terms. So actually, I don't want this necessarily a formal review. Actually, I want an on-demand review through digital. But if I need reassurance, if I need help, then I want the ability to click a button, get face-to-face with my advisor or whatever within an appropriate timescale, just to get the information I need, rather than having this rather stuffy, formalised process. And I think that's really the opportunity for our industry, is to embrace digital, to embrace that omni-channel distribution, to understand from our clients and ask them what they value about the service that we deliver, and then make sure we organise our businesses to deliver that value all the time. Because actually it might be, and I say this quite a lot, so I'm getting into the repetition piece, but it might be that the clients actually don't want a 57-page report every year. Just imagine how much time that would save the advisors, and how actually they could then divert their attention from that effort to speaking to more clients that frankly need it.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. Even for somebody that receives reports through from my financial advisor, you want the headline news. You want to know that your advisor is trusted to give you the best possible advice possible. Yeah. And it's all there for you, absolutely. And the digital is really the way to go.
Fantastic. Helen, thank you very much indeed. I thought it was great, and I really appreciate you spending time. So thank you very much, and lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much, Roland.
So Helen, welcome back to part 2 of this face-to-face. First face-to-face you've done, is that right, for a while?
Yes, it is.
Oh, well, I feel honoured.
Very honoured.
Now, obviously, we were talking about Mint Blue Consulting. This is your new business. Well, it's probably not that new anymore. How long have you been running Mint Blue?
So I set Mint Blue Consulting up in December 2017.
I remember actually you starting it up, and yeah, God, that's unbelievable, isn't it? Where did that go?
I know. Time flies.
It really is. So tell us about what you actually do and how you can help financial advice businesses, because we've already rehearsed in the first part of this interview the need for digital transformation, the need for firms to get a grip of their business direction of travel, have a clear vision for where they want to be and how they can deliver that sustainable business in future. How can your consultancy business help them in that journey?
Well, Mint Blue Consulting specialises in operational projects, so I act as a project manager and a consultant. So there's lots of businesses out there that don't have the opportunity or actually need a full-time project manager. Sure. But every business goes through a period of change, and that's where really some additional help is helpful to see that through. And the trick with operational projects, they tend to be all on top of day jobs. Yeah. So they can get very easily absorbed into day-to-day life, but they tend to grow arms and legs. Yeah. So for instance, a really good example is a website. A business might turn around and say, we need to set up a new website, let's have 3 pages on there. And before you know it, everybody's coming in and saying, actually, can we add in this particular part of the website? And we're actually thinking about rebranding over here. Yeah. So all of a sudden you're going, hold on a minute, what does the scope of this actually look like? Yeah. So projects can really help with digital transformation, because digital transformation is not just about technology, it's about people and the processes. Yeah. So by corralling it as a project and setting it up, you're looking at structure, you're looking at cost, you're looking at actually who needs to be involved on top of their day job to actually deliver. And as you said in part one, it's the elephant in the room. You're breaking down that elephant into manageable bites. Yes. So you take it on a step-by-step process through, and you can have a whole series of different projects. I've worked with clients over the last few years that you go in, they've got 40 projects, 80 projects on the list. So you're breaking it down and saying, what do you actually want to deliver from all of this? What's the key objective? Yeah. And that provides the building blocks for the future, and also helps companies manage their time and cost.
I think the potential for projects and the things that challenge projects, as you've already rehearsed with the website analogy, as soon as people get involved, they've all got their own idea. And so scope creep is a major challenge, I guess, with any project. And so having somebody who is basically the Rottweiler, the person who makes sure that the commitments that are made are fulfilled, obsessing about the list management, making sure that people do what they say they're going to do as part of that project, holding them to account, that's quite a skill in itself. And that's the sort of thing that you own?
Yes, absolutely. And I think people get the impression projects are going to be full-blown, full-time, got to be done every day of the week. In actual fact, I often go into firms, might be half a day a week, just to monitor how the project is running. We have that catch-up call and keep everything moving along. Other firms, I'm with them 3 days a week. It's all very varied. I tailor it all to what the actual client needs. Yes. So once we've got it all set up, and it's a look of relief on people's faces when they realise it can be structured, and actually some people can be released back into their day job while you're going through. So it's very much around keeping on top of what's going on. So weekly meetings are a great way of doing that, and actually keeping that communication level going. Yeah. So, and once you've got a very clear path as to how you can tackle all of that, you can feel it all just come into place.